So I'm going to tell you a story of a time where God said no. No. God does say no. Sometimes God says wait, and sometimes God says yes. In this instance it was no. So my husband had left, and I had booked holidays for the summer period. One was to go, there were flights to go to Ibiza. There was no accommodation or anything booked like that there, so I knew that was like a no. I knew God didn't want me going to Ibiza, so I just didn't go. Okay, the flights were not that dear, so that money was wasted, just wasted. And I knew God didn't want me going to Ibiza, even if it was on my own or with a friend or whatever. It just was not a place I was meant to be, and that was fine. So then the next holiday was flights and accommodation to Malta, and I really wanted to go here because I've never been to Malta and I haven't gone yet, and I do believe the Lord will open a door to let me go, because I'd really love to go and see around all like St Paul's Cathedral and just all the places like where Paul was shipwrecked, and try and trace through the Bible and things that happen. So I do believe there's going to be a time for that, it's just not yet, and that was fine. So my other kids were going on holiday. One of them was going with his dad, and my oldest son had moved out at this time, and my other daughter, she was away in Benidorm with her friend. So I was like, this would be really good, like me and my daughter could go. And daughter was only 13 at the time, and I changed the flight names to her, and I was still praying. I was like, Lord, am I to go on this holiday, or am I being like disobedient? Should I not go? Like, I don't know what to do. I was praying and praying and praying and praying and praying, and I wasn't hearing a yes or a no. Like, I could hear God at this time, and I wasn't really sure like what He was saying. And I had the money at the time to go and buy, like, change her name over, and it wasn't that dear. It was like a £15 return flight from Malta for her, and it wasn't that dear to change her name over. So anyway, that was grand. But then in my head, I was like, I'll book flights like from Malta to Athens, and then from Athens to Corfu, where her dad was with my other son, because she was supposed to go on holiday with him, but she wanted to go on holiday with me. And I was like, look, I can drop you off the last few days, but it means me going to Corfu. And my husband and I had separated. Things weren't good. He was really in a bad place. Hated me, absolutely hated me. He was like texting me really nasty things, basically saying to the kids, I just wanted to go to walk about in a bikini and just show myself off to him. This is like how twisted his mind was at the time. He was in a really bad place, and he'd already booked to go with my son and his friend and his sister and brother-in-law and stuff, and I don't think they had a very good time, put it that way. But so my plan was to go across and drop my daughter off, and God was like, no. So what I will say is, learn when God says no, it's definitely to protect you. It's a real protection. It's not because He's being mean. It's not because He doesn't know you need a holiday, or it's not because He doesn't want you having a good time. It's not that. It's protection. And what happened with my son and his dad on their holiday, it's not a situation I would have wanted to be in. And God knew, like, this is not where you have to be, Emma. And actually, you're not going to Malta with your daughter to fly across the world, one woman and her child. So I know there's people that travel the world like this. People travel the world on their own. Children even do flights at the age of 16 on their own and stuff. I'm not that person. I wasn't in a good state of mind at this time to be doing any of that, to be fair. Like, what was I thinking? So that was grand. I still ploughed ahead. I was like, no, I think God wants me to go on this holiday. What's the harm of me going to Malta with my daughter? And I had phoned my son. I was like, would you run us up to the airport? That was grand. So he was like, yeah, Mum, okay. And so what I'm going to, before I tell this story, it's like, watch the signs. If God speaks. You think God's not speaking? He is speaking. Watch for the signs. Acknowledge the signs and stop. So I'd booked these flights and whatever. Me and my daughter's going. My son's taking us up. And I had left my other daughter. She wasn't flying out to the following day. And I'd asked my mum to go round to the house and take her round to your friend's house and had organised all this. But really I was leaving my other daughter. Like my other son was 19. He was fine to stay in the house and he had work and all. He didn't want to go. No, sorry. My eyes. No, he was in the house. He was going with his dad to Corfu, that's right, but he wasn't leaving for like 2 or 3 days later, but my daughter was leaving the day after and we were going the first day. So like there was no one there for the kids. Like what was I thinking? This is stupid. God doesn't want you to leave your kids, okay, for your own selfish reasons. So that's fine. We packed up and away we went. God allows you to go and buy all the shampoo, buy all the cleaning stuff, buy all the shower gel, the sun cream, the bags. My money is just like burning out here on all this stuff that I didn't need because I wasn't going on holiday. And we took ourselves up to the airport, but on the way to the airport we got stuck behind a tractor and the queue was really, really long. And we'd already left late. My son kept saying to me, Mum, you need to go, we need to go, you're going to be late, we need to go, you're going to miss your flight, we need to go, we need to go. And I was like, it's fine, I'm starting to tumble dry. Like clothes in my tumble dryer to take with me and everything. And I was like, dragging my feet, thought this was alright. And then we got stuck behind this tractor. And then after that we got stuck behind like a horse and cart, no joke, a horse and cart. Or something like that. It was ridiculous. I remember thinking it was ridiculous because it's been like maybe a year ago now. Yeah, it was a year ago now. And I just wasn't watching the signs. And I'm still, no Daniel, we're still going. And I'm pushing on that we're going. And I wasn't listening. And away we went. Got up to the airport and he dropped us off. We went through, walked up through the airport to get to security, and security had a queue, like a massive queue for this one flight. All that was flying out was this one flight and this massive queue, and we were at the back of it. And I checked my boarding passes and they were like speedy boarding, like I had paid for extra, but we had gone down the wrong line. And then I had cracked onto this and I called the guy over and I was like, we're speedy boarding, so can, you know, how do we get through? And he was like, no, just stay in the back of the queue. And I was like, it's really rude. Like, he was really rude. And on my phone it was saying like boarding's open, or boarding's closing. So my flight was already like boarding the plane. And actually before that, because my daughter was a minor and I was changing her name from her dad's name to her name, I had to go to the desk and actually get a proper printed off ticket for her to get on. It was just a whole faff, and that made us even later. So when we got up to security, we were at the back of the queue. I asked again, because we should have been in the other line that let people straight through, because there's people with families just going straight through to security. So we got to the end of the line and it was slowly but surely going down, and my phone still saying like gate closing, last call. And we got through security, and sure, wasn't there something in my bag? They pulled my bag. I left a water bottle in my bag and they took it out, and he was not for moving fast. He was slowly but surely, and I'm really getting frustrated, and I'm like standing looking at him, like just taking everything out of my bag dead slow. Then they took it for a drug test and I was like, seriously? And right there and then I was like, I'm not going on this flight, I'm not going on holiday. How many signs do I need? And we cracked on to the gate, and sure, the plane was taking off, and my daughter turned around and said, Mum, that's our plane, because of the airline it was. And I was like, it is, darling. And she went, oh, don't worry. And I said, you need to give me a wee minute, because in my old man, I would have been screaming and shouting. I'd have been like, I can't believe this, and you kept me back. I would have went off in one. And I took myself to the side and I was like, Lord, I'm really unhappy about this. I'm very cross. but I need to keep it together because I am not flipping out the way I used to before. I'm not having a crash out here. And I turned around to my daughter and I was like, okay, right, I'm over it. Let's just go home. Now, at this, my son rings me and he says, Mum, where are you? I says, yeah, missed the flight, Dan. He says, I thought so. He says, I parked up at the airport petrol station. I'm going to come back and get you now. And I said, okay. So we made our way back out of the airport and my son took us home. God already had Daniel sitting there waiting because how else were we getting home? We were a good distance away from the airport. And I reimbursed his diesel money because he'd done all this running about. He was like 20 miles from home and running us back and forward and then had to go home again. Probably in a round trip, he'd probably done about 80 to 90 miles. And yeah, not ideal. And God said no. So listen to the signs. If you're not sure and you're praying and praying and praying, listen to the signs. And that's how God taught me, like, to listen to him, to see things that were happening in real life. To guide me in the right direction. And yes, I wasn't listening to them and keep going forward, but ultimately he gets his own way anyway, and it was a no. And I contacted the lady that I had rented the Airbnb off, and she very kindly has saved that for another date. I lost the flights, they weren't too dear, but do you know, there's always casualties in war. There's always casualties in war, and I had to lose the flights and I lost the money on the flights, and that was the casualty out of that war. But yeah, that's when God says no. And we didn't go on holiday, and do you know what? Everybody else was on holiday, the house was secured, the kids all got dropped off and everything went smoothly and they were safe with the other people that were going on holiday with, and me and my daughter went into Belfast and we had a really lovely day. We had lunch, we done a bit of shopping with the money that I was going to spend on holiday, and it wasn't a whole load, but it was enough, and we had a really lovely day. And you know, my daughter got more joy out of that day than probably a holiday would have been. And funny, when we got home, she started to get cross about missing the flight, and I was like, do you need a minute? And she's like, yeah, I just need to tell you I'm cross now. It wasn't before when we were at the airport, but I am now. And I just said to her, look, it's all right, love. I says, it's okay to feel that way because that's how I felt in the airport, but I just seen the grace of God in that she didn't freak out at the airport, because it would have put me under pressure. It really would have. I'd have been like, give over, you know, like I'd have probably flipped out. But God closed her wee mouth, and she just sat and she had such sympathy for me. And then we went home. I had got myself together and was able to be gracious to her, and I was like, it's okay, love, it's fine. And then like straight away God says to me, Belfast, like go to Belfast, take her to Belfast, shopping. I could just feel this in my spirit, and I didn't want to go. I hate going into the city, but this kept going, you know, in my spirit. And she came back into the kitchen later on that evening, and I says, Farah, do you want to go shopping to Belfast? And her wee face lit up, and that quality time with her that day, like, was probably worth more than anything. So God's not mean, God's only good. When he says no, there's something better you could do with that money. And there was other stuff happened that day when we were in Belfast, with people we had met and we were able to bless, and it was just a lovely day. Really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, so God says no, he's got something better for you, and it mightn't be a right now, but it's a no for right now. And I do believe I will get to Malta and see all the sights that I want to see. And if I do get to Malta, I'll come back and tell you. But when God says no, he means no, and it's only for your protection. So don't wallow in your self-pity. Don't think that he's beating you around the head. He doesn't work like that. It's always for protection. And I don't know what would have happened on that holiday, like in regards to safety, and you know, flying through Athens and over to Corfu, and like, we couldn't get a flight home. I couldn't get a flight home. She could, but I couldn't. So that was another big red flag, like, don't do this. And I thank God that he protected me, and I was so wrestling with God, like Jacob, about that, but God still blessed me with a really lovely day, and we had a lovely week actually, just together, just suiting ourselves and doing our own things. We weren't bored at all, and I just had a really lovely rest. So yes, that's a lesson I learnt. And if anybody's going through that and God's saying no, see the bigger picture. Really try to sit back and see the bigger picture. He's protecting you. That's all I can say, is God protected me in that from emotional turmoil. It's not my portion, and he only wants what's good for his kids. So just accept that as a blessing in disguise and divine protection. That's all I can put that down to. So yes, hopefully that's helped someone. And it mightn't be a holiday or something like that, it might be something else, but try and see it that way. And I know God's hand of protection is always on me. And I've been wrestling with him the past couple of days, and he gave me a dream to reassure me. And then whatever I read, this always happens, I read something last night in John 2, and I was like, why am I reading that? And then I heard a sermon this morning on my phone, a wee quick sermon, and it spoke into you and exactly what it was about. And I was like, Lord, you're speaking. You always speak. Always, always, always speak, if you're willing to listen. So yes, that's the lesson for today.